My name is Rena Starr. This is the Fempire podcast, our very first episode. We are helping women grow wealth through real estate. Sitting down today with Cara Kennedy and Quiera Kiel, both successful real estate investors here in the Metro Detroit area and in Detroit. Excited to have you both today. Why don't you go ahead and take a minute to introduce yourselves?
Sure, yeah. My name's Cara Kennedy. I've been investing since 2019. I live here in the Metro Detroit area.
My name is Quiera Kiel, and I have been here since 2016. I started investing just last year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So in case it's not obvious, we're talking about real estate investing today. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning. So can you ladies tell me how you got into real estate investing, kind of what prompted you to come into the industry?
Sure, yeah. So I started in 2019 in the summer. The year prior, I was laid off from my dream job and realized I didn't want to rely on only one source of income ever again. So I read every book I could on investing in general. That led me back to the quintessential Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and reread that. And then I spent like a solid 6 months just educating myself, going to a bunch of networking events and educational seminars, and then started my first project January 2020.
Cool.
Very cool.
Thank you, Quiera.
So I started last year. I was laid off by my company, and similar story. Thought it was everything that I wanted to. I am a recovering attorney, and I also didn't want to rely. I thought that was going to be. I wanted to do it so bad. I worked my butt off, and then when I realized, yeah, you're kind of at the mercy of someone else, and yeah, and your hours are not your own. And I have a young family. I have twin girls who are 2.5, and I wanted to spend time with them and realize I still love traveling, and so that's why I decided to get into real estate and move in, and I haven't looked back.
I love it. That's so funny how similar the stories are, because I came over to the broker side of things because of a layoff. I was an underwriter and I had 2 layoffs within a year, and I said, this is the time to really make a shift. I knew I wanted to come back to originating eventually, and came over to this side of things then too. So that's funny that sometimes it takes you to get a little kick in the pants to start what you actually want to do. So I love that.
That like pain of, not changing is more painful than doing the hard work to change.
Right.
Also called the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Love it.
you're-
You get comfy.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. So Cara, we're going to work on that.
Oh,
Let's
it'll
go back and
happen.
forth. Cara.
We're used to it at
Yeah.
this point.
Exactly. We look for the eyes of who's talking to who. So.
Cara, you talked about networking, and I know this is something you feel really strongly about. Do you want to kind of talk about the importance of networking and maybe some tips for somebody who might want to be starting out in investing to start networking?
Yeah, I would say, so there's that cliche saying of your network is your net worth. And I would add that your trusted network is your net worth. Having been to a lot of events, it's important to build relationships where you can mutually benefit each other. So you know different things, you can bring different things to the table, but it's people who you trust and align with. So I'd say for people getting into the industry, real estate investing in particular is what I understand the most. It's important to develop trusted relationships and not look at things on a transactional basis. If I help you today, that doesn't mean I expect you to help me next week. It means I hope to build you up, and in the hopes that you can help someone else around you. And, a rising tide lifts all boats. So don't look at networking as transactional. What can I get out of this conversation? I say 4 words and hand you my business card and go on to the next person. That's really inauthentic. So try to be yourself, be aware of what skills you can help people with, and just don't pull a fast one. Just be genuine. So,
Yeah,
100%.
I'd second that. I think networking is really important, especially if you are new to the investing world. So my background in my investing world, I have 9 units. I am an AirBNB operator. And so I do arbitration, which means I have leases, and I release that unit back to Airbnb, Vrbo, corporate leases. And it's because I was able to grow because of the networking, the relationship building. I was actually fishing around looking at multiple different buildings, but because of the relationship that I was able to build with this one developer, I did one and he really loved what I was doing, and he was like, would you like another? And I got this other building, come see it. And so I have been able to just grow because of that trust, because of that. And things happen. Things are going to happen. And you need that foundation with whether it's your PML, meaning private money lender, private money partner, or with a developer, to understand that things are going to happen, and you have to ride those waves together to understand that you're looking for the same goal and to have some sort of understanding. Because in my world, we don't always have guests with the best intentions, right? So I have to be very cautious of how the other tenants in his building are affected by what I'm doing, and to have that conversation like, hey, some things are going to happen, but we're going to mitigate everything we possibly can to make that a minimum. So
can I echo? I love how you put it as relationship building. I think that's the distinction of networking with purpose and with integrity versus what can I get out of here? Right. So I love the way you phrase that.
I think, and I see that a lot of on my end of things, because loan officers are obviously, and realtors constantly networking with each other, and you see networking events where you're going and grabbing a glass of wine and you're handing somebody your business card and you're talking about the business, and then you leave and not a lot happens after that. You're not helping each other. You're not kind of building that relationship necessarily. I think that's the biggest difference I've seen going to a lot of RIAs and a lot of real estate investor groups is we really are building those connections. I've had 5 conversations today that had nothing to do with lending, calling different realtors in different areas because I had a connection from Cara that helping my cousin buy a house or so it's really just building that relationship, and I love that kind of different take on it. Quiera, you touched on the next kind of thing I wanted to talk about, which is evaluating risk. So how do you look at the risk versus the reward of a property and decide to make a leap or go for it?
So I use software. Number one, there's one particular one I use is called AirBNB. Also paying attention to the travel, what's happening in the travel world, and what are the top 10 places that are happening. I mean, we focus on, more than just amusement parks like your Disneylands. We just actually go for hospitals. We go for universities. So we look for something that's going to give us stable, a stable influx of people. And you want to, so for us, we're always evaluating whether or not that city, and unfortunately Detroit is a fickle place because you have a lot of immigration, but we don't have as much immigration, right? And so, but we're stabilized right now, which is wonderful. And we do have an influx of medical personnel because we do have teaching hospitals here, like the Cromwell, formerly known as Beaumont. And we have a lot of travel nurses that like to come here. So knowing the market, and that means knowing seasonality, knowing your market's demographic, knowing when what types of people are traveling here. So we get a lot of influx from the Czech Republic, from Germany, from China, of engineers that come here for projects. So knowing where they are where their setup are, where the plants are, that helps me designate where my next procurement is going to be. And also, and even easier if you're not in Michigan and you don't have a big pull for, say, the automotive. The next thing to do is to look for, this is a really basic one, and it's to find out where all the short stay hotels. You're like, the long stay hotel, the extended stays. You look for where those extended stays are, you pick up a little house over there and you start renting that one out, and that can be your first Airbnb. That's the simplest way to get started, too.
I love that. Good little nugget there. Mm-hmm. What about for you, Cara? When you're evaluating risk versus reward, I know you do a little bit different style of investing.
Yeah, really different. I've dabbled in MTRs. I do not have Kiera's gift. She's great at it. I look more into rentals and long-term holds is my favorite thing. And it's about, can your rent pay your mortgage and your holding costs? So you want to save Some percentage for maintenance, capital expenditures is like your roof, your window replacement, things that are on the 5 to 20 year, life cycle of what's holding your investment together. And there's a saying like the eighth wonder of the world is a 30-year fixed mortgage. So the whole, real estate, the dollar and rent tends to inflate over time. But if you get a fixed mortgage and you know that your rent will cover that, that's key. And anytime I'm looking at any type of property, so I'm starting to look at multifamily and different types of commercial assets as well. But I never like to go into a project unless I know there's at least 2 to 3 exit strategies. So creative finance is kind of a buzzword right now, and it really just means anything non-traditional with cash or conventional mortgage. So I like to make sure if I'm going to buy a property, I can exit it 2 or 3 ways. And that could be as a rental, it could be as a flip, it could be selling it on land contract or contract for deed, depending on what state you're in. And that's like selling on payments over time. Or the structure called a lease option, which gives people the option to buy the house. And I love that one. One of my passions is affordable or attainable housing. And a lease option can help someone who wants to repair their credit. So you can partner with someone in the mortgage industry and in credit repair to help them make sure they can qualify in the 1 to 2 year timeline so they can become a homeowner. And in the industry, you sometimes see people in a contentious relationship with their residents or their tenants. Ultimately, you're all on the same team. People want a safe place to live in a neighborhood that they trust where, their family, their partners, their kids feel secure. And I'm looking for homes with good people who want to live there and make it their own. So
I love that. I really
long-winded answer.
No, I appreciate that perspective on being a landlord and creating affordable housing, because I think a lot of the things, and I know you've done this and I've heard this from different places, is, we're not necessarily as investors going into a turnkey that somebody could buy and live in as a family. You're going in and taking a house that is unlivable or not attractive to live in right now and turning that into comfortable housing and housing that someone can utilize.
Yeah, and that you touch on a really interesting point, because there's also, when you play the long-term game, when you go in and fix up a home that someone else couldn't afford to fix up, or they had to move out of state or out of country in a hurry, you then also benefit from improving it and forcing some appreciation, is the saying. And then just on the term landlord, there's also a swing right now to call ourselves housing providers. And our tenants, our residents, they're not just passing through. We're really looking for, housing partnerships. So.
I like that. So you both kind of touch on different sides of investing. What made you decide to go into each specific field? Like, what made you not go into Airbnb and you not go necessarily into the more buy and hold route versus, the hundreds of other options that there are out there for investing?
I learned by doing, so I've tried multiple things before I landed on where I'm at. I would just encourage anyone looking at it to educate themselves on what's out there and then find what they're naturally good at and do that. So I'm really good at talking to people. Most of my lead sources, like I've been in this for almost 5 years now, so most of my lead sources are one-on-one conversations with neighbors. I have people who touch base every year or something. I've only met them once in person, and we talk every 6 months to a year. Cara, what do you got going on? So buy and hold type strategy, and then affordable housing and the creative structuring meets my personality, where I dread getting a phone call unexpected at 10 p.m. because I just want to be, watching a movie or reading a book on my couch and not putting on my concierge face. And then I like to collaborate with people, and I have a very creative mentality. I'm a recovering civil engineer, so creativity in the sense of math is in my brain, so that's what I'm drawn to.
Love that.
So mine's a little different. I I jumped in. I liked, my whole motivation was cash flow, and I wanted
Makes sense.
I wanted fast cash, and I felt after weighing a couple different things, the Burr method, this, and I was like, oh, and I knew enough. I did educate myself enough to look at the different directions of real estate, and I wanted something faster, less work in the sense of needing to be on the site, on job site, and chasing and cracking whips and that
Like a
kind
flipper.
of thing. Yeah.